but screw it, I'ma do it anyway. I don't know how this will turn out, but screw it, I'ma do it anyway. I don't know how this thing works, but screw it, I'ma do it anyway. I don't know how this will turn out, but screw it, I'ma do it anyway. What is up, good people? It's your girl, Nikki P. Welcome back to another episode of Soul Untamed, where we are talking about creating lives that are designed by us and not for us. So, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I am very big on living this one and only life that we have to the best, to the ultimate, just living a life that you love waking up to, right? That, to me personally, that is what we are here for. It is not a privilege, it's a right. It is a right, and each and every last one of us deserve to get up that way. But you know that a majority of people don't. A lot of us are settling in every area of our life. You know, a lot of us are settling with our finances being the way that they are, with our love life being the way that it is, our family life being the way that it is, our businesses, or not going after the business that we really desire. You know, we just kind of let that stuff just go and let me just let me just be satisfied with what I have, like we say all these things. And I am just determined to be the ultimate rebel on that and say no. We deserve to really enjoy our lives. All of us do. And I think that for most of us, nobody really actively, consciously chooses to not be happy. I don't think that they do. Nobody really wakes up in the morning and says, let me find ways to make life suck more today. Like, nobody actually says that. But we do. We find ourselves living the same day on repeat, just going through life. And when I first started making changes in my life so that I could wake up and enjoy the life that I was living, I really wondered, well, why is it that we're like that? What is it? What is the thing that keeps us from getting from this version of ourselves to this version who loves the way that they live? And it all comes down to limiting beliefs. It all comes down to limiting beliefs. This invisible script that is running in the background of our mind, saying things like, you know, it just is what it is. That seems to be the most common one to me. I hear that almost every day from somebody when you make a comment about anything. And they're, you know, it's something that they know they don't like, but they'll just be like, no, shoulder shrug. It is what it is, as almost like a verbal acceptance that this, I guess this is just the way life is. And like, we want this soft girl life and soft girl era and all of that. So we have more of us who are getting away from the hustle mentality, but there's still a whole lot more of us that are out here in this hustle mode. You know, the men do it too. This mentality of I'll sleep when I'm dead type thing. and will really tell themselves that I don't have time to rest. And this happened to me a couple of weeks ago where like I've been going through this like just shifting. I don't even know how to really explain it any more than that. My life since like the end of March, and it's currently April, there's been this shifting that's been going on. And for a while, it's been feeling like life was more in control of me than I in control of it. And I was living more reactively than proactive. And I wasn't getting enough rest because I had so much stuff to do. Or so I kept telling myself I had all this stuff to do. And it was one day where I was literally sitting there and every day I always like map out what I have to do so that I can try to like arrange it and put it in order and when's the best time and how's my energy around time and all of that planning. And I just had this epiphany as I was putting it together, and I was like, all this doesn't have to be done today. As a matter of fact, all of this doesn't even really have to be done this week. I can move some of this stuff around so that I do actually have time to rest. And I reminded myself that I am in control of my schedule. I get to say no. I think a lot of us forget that too, that we also have this invisible script that says, oh, well, you can't say no. So I had to remind myself that I could say no. And I literally sat there and I went through that same schedule and I said, nope, well, this actually can get done next week. This can get done tomorrow. This can get done on Friday. And by the time I finish, well, look at that. I had time. But it started with the awareness that I was telling myself something that wasn't true, that I didn't have time to rest. Of course you do. Of course you do. What you have to do is prioritize rest so that now when you're looking at the schedule, you look at it from that lens instead of looking at it from coming from the belief that I don't have time for this. So that was me like shifting in real time of catching the belief and saying, oh, no, that's not true. That's not true. Let me reframe this. And now let me embody this new belief, this new truth for me, and making the adjustments in my life. And I feel like as I listen to a whole lot of different influencers, content creators talk about these limiting beliefs, and I'm sure that you have heard a lot of them, the ones that are really like neon light flashing in front of you, particularly when it's dealing with money. Those are always the ones that I hear. So things like, limiting beliefs like our money is limited, things that come from statements like money doesn't grow on trees. And so I think that a lot of times we will focus more on like those larger limiting beliefs, but then we forget about like the small ones, the little sneaky ones that are just running back there on autopilot that we just don't even pay attention to, and we don't realize that they're limiting beliefs because they're not that big. It's not that big a deal. It doesn't really affect my life like that. So I'm going to tell you about another one that I changed. All this recently, all this somewhere within the last month. I was working out and I was thinking about my eating. I've been on a fitness journey consistently since like 2022. And in this journey, and if you are into fitness, and even if you're not, I'm sure that you know that part of being your healthiest version is the way that you eat and healthy eating. Now, I had this limiting belief that healthy eating had to be boring. I can't even tell you where it comes from. I really can't even tell you where it comes from. But in my mind, I thought that giving up the foods that were bad for me, all the foods that I enjoy eating, by the way, like I'm sure most of us do, but I somehow got it in my mind that healthy eating equals boring eating. So when I switched out my diet, I didn't even try to find recipes for things that I would like. I didn't even look into how to, play with the different spices, explore my palate. I didn't do any of that because I just assumed that healthy eating had to be boring. And it was only recently, and I think my aunt, I can credit her partially for this because my aunt is a foodie and she does not play about her food tasting good. But it's only recently where I realized, I was like, oh, healthy food can taste good too. Now, was it something that was impacting my life in like a big and obvious way? No, no. I was fine. I was okay eating, eating for obligation, if you will. Like eating, this is what I have to do, so let's eat. It didn't make that big a difference to me, but it still was a limiting belief that was keeping me from enjoying something in my life. So they don't always have to be these big, grand, beliefs, these life-changing beliefs. It's these little tiny ones too that you also have to watch out for and just catch them. Because it's still, even if it's taking like 5% of your joy away every single day, that is still 5% that you are entitled to. So definitely pay attention to all of those things and pay attention to your environment. I've also realized how much my environment affects the way that I think. It reinforces what I believe. So, when I say environment, I'm not just talking about your physical environment, where you're sitting, where you're sleeping, where you study, where you work. I am also talking about the people that you allow into your space. I'm also talking about the podcast that you listen to, the music that you listen to, whatever is feeding you externally, things that are coming from the outside that you are taking in every single day. All of these things are a part of your environment. And so one of the transitions that I'm going through is shifting from being a full-time employee to being a full-time entrepreneur. The employee mindset is very different than the entrepreneur mindset. As an employee, I have spent years working for people who told me when I could take my time, how I took my time, if I could work from home, if I like all these different things. And I got so used to that I actually still have this belief. This kind of also ties into the one that I said earlier about feeling like I don't have time to rest. I have a very hard time using my paid time off because I've always felt like it was limited. And then I always felt like because I had to get permission to use it, that I had to have a really good reason for why I was using my time. So usually if I'm not taking a vacation, or if there's not an appointment or something that I am really bad at just taking time off. And as an entrepreneur, if you don't take time off, like they will have you in these streets, like working 24/7, literally, if you don't set the boundary. And so I found that my environment as an employee, where I was surrounded by other employees, these are things that I heard all the time of not taking this time off, or even being like corporate America celebrates working overtime, working hard, staying late, coming in early, not taking lunch. Like that is the norm. And I think we're, definitely the younger generations are changing it. And I am including, millennial and even like the younger Gen X, and definitely Zennials, definitely Gen Z, like have moved away from that, but we still have that belief that's out there of working as an employee, whereas shifting to an entrepreneur and having to shift my mindset of like, oh no, you're in charge. You get to say what days you're working and what days you're not. You get to choose which clients you work for and which ones that you don't want to work with. You have that right. And having to surround myself with more people who are like me that are in this season, the more entrepreneurs, so that is what is in my ear when I listen to podcasts and when I listen to other content creators, making sure that I am listening to people that are feeding more of that mindset and less of this one, because what is in your environment, what you are taking in, matters to your belief system. Even where I work at, I have to make sure that I am not working in places that remind me of being in an office, that remind me of being an employee. I work better when I work in cafes, or better yet, now that it's getting warmer, working outside, because that is part of being an entrepreneur, that I get to choose where I work at, as opposed to being an employee and not having choice in that. But I had to change what I was feeding myself. I have to change the people that I'm hanging out with, the people that I'm talking to the most. Because if I keep listening to the employees, I'm going to keep a lot of the belief system of the employees. If I want more of the belief system of entrepreneurs, I need that in my ear. I need those podcasts, those influencers, those business owners in my ear. And so definitely your environment, your circle, all of that stuff matters to reinforce your belief system. And so the reason why all of this is so important is because your beliefs shape your thoughts. Your thoughts translate to the words that you say out of your mouth. Words have a lot of power. Words have a lot of power. Christians will say the power of life and death is in your tongue. Words have power. Those words eventually become your actions, and your actions are going to dictate your outcome. That is manifestation. So when you have these limiting beliefs of, you know, I guess love isn't for me. I mean, you know, it's hard to run your own business, so like why even start? I'm not smart enough to do this. Oh, I'm always going to be living from check to check. Oh, millionaire status, that's not for me. When you say those things, when you believe that and you think it and then you say it, you're going to have habits and actions that reinforce that belief. And then when you get the outcome that is exactly that is the result of what you've been doing, it serves as proof that what you believe is right. And so you don't change. And you keep going in this cycle, you keep running this rat race, and then you wonder why 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the line, why your life doesn't look any different. It all starts with what you believe. That is that right there. If you change that, reframe that, embody the true belief, the truth of what it actually is, your outcome will be different. And that is when you will be living the life that you desire to live. So my challenge to you this week, not just this week, but my challenge to you in general, whenever you find this video, is to pay attention to your internal dialogue. What are you telling yourself every day? What is the common language that you're hearing? What is something that keeps coming up? What is the thing that you desire that you don't seem to be able to get? Why is that? What do you believe about that? What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about the circumstances around that? Why are you there? Clock it, write it down. Then just start there. Just start there. We'll get into like the reframing and the embodiment of the new belief and all of that later. But for right now, my challenge to you is just to clock it, notice it. Every single time you have any of those thoughts that are on repeat, running in the background. What is it? Write it down. Thank you so much for rocking with me today. And just remember that you deserve to live a life that you love. Not one that was chosen for you, but one that you choose. You deserve it. Till the next time, it's your girl, Nikki P.